FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. Today is April 9th, 2020. Looks like there's a light at the end of the pandemic tunnel. But will the world ever be the same? And do we want it to be the same? Actually, we'd like it to be better, but a lot of it's out of your control and out of mine. Well, the one thing I can tell you is that things are changing. Want to get your take on the changes that are happening now and that are going to be happening in the not too distant future. And you can email me at KL@KerryLutz. That's KL@KerryLutz.com. And well, everyone's a nationalist now, I think. And our next guest is going to prove it. Dr. Stephen Turley, YouTube sensation, and website turleytalks.com. So Steve, it's great to have you back on. And wow, everyone's a nationalist now, even Justin Trudeau. Who would have thunk?
That's right. We're just talking before this that if I had said to you, hey, there's a North American leader who's just issued a travel ban on virtually all nations, and his last name begins with the letters TRU, who would you have guessed that to be? In a million years, you would never have said Trudeau, Justin Soyboy Trudeau, but it's true. It's absolutely true. And what we have to understand is that border closings and travel bans, we can't lose sight of this. These were always considered the fundamental characteristic of the nationalist populist right. Just think about the leftist reaction to President Trump's original travel ban against travelers. Remember the so-called Muslim travel ban for travelers from Chad and Iran and Libya and Somalia and Syria and Yemen. If you do a Google search on that travel ban, the top results will all be these leftist, left-wing activists disguised as journalists complaining how this was nothing less than white supremacism dictating foreign policy, right? Don't forget crying Chuck Schumer's tweet when Trump first closed the border to China. When Trump instituted a travel ban on China at the end of January, while Democrats were still trying to get him impeached, the Senate trial went into early February. When he issued that travel ban, Schumer excoriated Trump for being capricious and impulsive and, of course, extending out his war on immigrants. So we can never forget that because, by the way, that tweet has since been deleted.
Yes, absolutely.
It's been deleted because now everybody wants border closings. Everybody wants travel bans, even Justin Trudeau, for heaven's sakes. And so when you have Emmanuel Macron sounding like Marine Le Pen, when you have the leftist government in Italy sounding like the nationalist populist Matteo Salvini of Lega, a massive paradigm shift has taken place.
Yeah, massive. I couldn't agree with you more on this. And this is just proof that the world really is changing and the left doesn't know what to do about it, which, hey, is okay because, they just don't get it. And
well, I think that's key because I think that helps to explain the hysterics and the heckling that have replaced reporting during these White House press briefings going on with the coronavirus task force. I think that the two are interrelated. They know, they sense they are on the media senses, they are on the front lines of protecting what may be the complete demolition of a globalist left-wing worldview because there are no world leaders who are doing it anymore. They're all sounding like Donald Trump and Marine Le Pen and Matteo Salvini. So they're the only ones, them and the World Health Organization, they're the only ones that are being able to kind of fight the good fight to try to keep globalism alive. But everybody else has basically abandoned him. Even, for heaven's sakes, even Cuomo and the California governor, Gavin Newsom, even they have sounded more and more like, we got to go with what Trump's saying here.
Well, I guess even they can read the political handwriting on the wall. Joe Biden, I don't know where he's at now. I think he's in an undisclosed location, an undisclosed basement, basically in a clean room, and nobody's going near him because he's definitely got the risk profile for a COVID-19 patient.
Oh my heavens! Yeah. Did you see? Speaking and unfortunately, I have the unfortunate experience of having him not too far away from me. I'm in the Philly area, and so in the greater Delaware area. I mean, he's just probably 20 minutes away from me, and his live streams. I don't know if you saw this, but his live streams on YouTube from down in his basement. Yeah. We're getting at most around 2,000 views at the time of watching the live stream versus Trump's 10 million for his coronavirus updates. I mean, and people think they think November's going to even be close. I mean, come on.
Yeah, ridiculous. And I've always said that he's never going to be the candidate. But I think after the whipping that Cuomo has taken and the exposure on his lack of preparedness, literally refusing to buy ventilators. Not that they would have necessarily done much good. Most of the time during the disaster, people went on ventilators, they died. But nonetheless, he kept saying, we need more. And then it turned out, well, you had your opportunity to buy more very cheaply, and you didn't do it. And, well, does it all matter? I mean, come November, what are people going to be thinking here about the, will they even be thinking about the pandemic? It looks like it's rapidly coming to a close. Yes, people are still dying. I'm not downplaying that, but it looks like the days of the pandemic are going to pass at some time in the near future.
Yeah, we are seeing it hit its peak. Tucker Carlson was talking about that just the other night. I wrote down a couple of stats here. On April 2nd in New York, 1,427 people were hospitalized for the coronavirus. That was the highest it recorded. The next day, it fell by 400 to 1,009 or 90. And then on the following Sunday, so that would have been this last Sunday, it fell to just over 350. So it looks like we're clearly seeing a peak and it's dropping. We're seeing this. I think coronavirus cases are now down 16% as of April 4th and 15% as of April 5th, which is wonderful news. Yeah. It went, I guess, in New York, it went from a high of 118% increase between March 17th and 18th. It's now down to a 9% to 13% increase. So it's slowing down quite rapidly. Spain is reporting new lows. Italy is reporting new lows. So it looks like we're finally tapering off here. I mean, Trump is already. I mean, I know we had this Obama clown. It's architect of of Obamacare saying we're going to need to be shut down for the next 18
Zeke
months.
Emanuel.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Zeke.
Sure.
Never trust a guy named Zeke. All right, that's the first thing.
I think all parents with school-age kids will immediately rebel against that one.
No, there's no room for Zekes in this world. They're not making them anymore, and anything someone named Zeke says, you need to ignore for sure. But the number of cases, the most telling infographic in the New York Times, they're so dishonest here, Steve. When you look at it, it's the rate at which cases are doubling. Okay.
Right.
And the quicker the rate, the brighter the orange. And the slower the rate, it goes to gray. And the whole country is turning gray on the map. But up until today, they were not updating it. It was taking them 2 days to update that. The last update before today was the 5th, and the last update before that was the third. Yeah, and it's just an example of corruption. Every other stat, like the number of deaths is up to the minute, the number of tested positives up to the minute, but the rate that it's doubling, which would slow, because we're testing so much more. We're testing 100-fold more than we were 4 weeks ago. We're testing more, finding less. The number itself doesn't make any difference because most of those people are not going to ever have serious complications. But the fact that the doubling rate goes up, meaning it takes more days to double, like in Westchester County where I lived, New Rochelle was barricaded, couldn't get out of the place, and the highest incidence. And now they're doubling like every 15 days. Pretty soon, once they get past 20 days, it doesn't matter. And the other thing is the experts, the guy who is the Nobel laureate, Israeli biomathematician, he was an Israeli biophysics, but he knows his numbers. Guys who are in physics know their numbers. And he said, this thing is going to just go away shortly. And yet we shut down the world economy. I don't want to get conspiratorial with you, Steve, but do you think that this was done, the shutting down of the world economy, to try to, as another aspect of the coup, to try to get rid of Trump?
I don't know, but I mean, I've thought about that as well. I don't know. I just don't have any real solid evidence for that. The one thing that I think that sort of pushes back on that is the idea that it has had the effect of turning everybody into a nationalist populace. I mean, you see the way China's about to get punished big time. They already have been, but they're going to continue. I mean, economic nationalism. I mean, I think it was Pat Buchanan who pointed out, now that this has happened, does anyone really think it was a good idea to allow China to control supply chains vital to our national security?
Oh, God.
Does anybody really want? So you're already seeing bills that are being drafted to say, look, anything involving national security must be manufactured at home. India's been doing that of late. I think 30% of whatever's sold in India has to be manufactured inside India. Open borders and mass migration, which are the hallmarks of globalization, are effectively dead. I mean, again, they'll try to sneak it in here or there, but nobody... The rhetoric of the Obama rhetoric or the Merkel rhetoric of 2015 is effectively dead. And the Democrats' love affair with the open borders and the comments that they made when Trump secured them, that's going to haunt them for a long time. So, we'll have to see how it all shakes out. But it seems that if globalists were hoping that they were going to gain some kind of advantage from shutting down the economy, it seems like it's had the opposite effect in terms of the nationalist sentiments that it's evoked.
It literally blew up in their faces. And if that was the goal, it failed miserably. So what about the whole thing with Trump when he mentions that hydroxychloroquine,
hydroxychloroquine,
could be the game changer.
That could be our new tongue twister from now on.
Yeah, it's like I didn't even want to know all these words. So we've learned flattening the curve. We've learned chloroquine. And I was happy just knowing about quinine in my tonic, my gin and tonic. I was really satisfied with that.
That's right.
But they can't just leave well enough alone. Every time there's a crisis, you wind up with a whole new vocabulary to describe it. And that in itself, well, I guess it's the human understanding is always expanding. But they pursued him relentlessly that he was giving false hope. And look, one thing you know about Trump is, he says what he says. But when he repeats something like that, it's not because he's hopeful or, pie in the sky. It's because he's got the access to the best medical people. And then the governors of New York and Michigan, put bans on it. So the average person, you can't get it at a pharmacy, even if your doctor prescribed it. Something really, really wrong with that. That requires an investigation in and of itself.
Yeah, especially given the fact that they've since lifted it as well. They had to do a mea culpa on that one. Yeah,
exactly. And And that should tell you all you need to know. But, there's some bad things that happen. So the other thing is the fake news. The Times says that Trump has an interest in the company that manufactures, hydroxychloroquine, and it's a Sanofi. I think it's a French pharmaceutical company. He doesn't own it directly. He owns a mutual fund, and he might own between $100 worth and $15,000. But that's what's motivating him to push the drug. I mean, have you ever seen such stupidity in your life, Steve?
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Arcana Corporation is on the verge of bringing the world's highest grade silver mine into production. The Revenue Virginius mine in Colorado has proven improbable silver reserves grading nearly 37 ounces per ton silver, with an all-in sustaining production cost of only US $8 per ounce of silver. The mine is fully permitted with infrastructure already in place, and the company has announced they plan to commence production in 2020. Achieving successful production usually results in a significant upward share price re-rating on the Lassonde curve. Arcana trades under the ticker AUN in Toronto and AUNFF in New York. To learn more, go to arcana.com. That's AURCANA.com.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Yeah, it does talk about just grasping at straws. It does seem extremely forced. It seems extremely desperate. The polls show that people are receiving this kind of news with tremendous skepticism. I think the media, we have to remember liberals are inherently arrogant, generally speaking. They see themselves as the lone. So if you're a leftist, by definition, you're rational and you are liberal. You are scientifically rational. You base your belief system supposedly on scientific rationalism, and anything that does not explain, that is not scientifically explained, like gender and things like that, that's all a personal choice. So you're scientifically rational and you are liberal. So if you're a non-leftist, then by definition, you're irrational and repressive. And that tends to foster a very arrogant attitude and sentiment and disposition. I think the media was shocked. They never dreamed that more people would actually end up trusting Trump than them. In terms of the coronavirus information they were getting. And the Gallup poll shows this. The Monmouth poll shows this. There was an Ipsos poll that showed this, that more people trust the White House coronavirus task force in terms of the information they're getting than they do the New York Times or CNN or MSNBC. And they're shocked. They can't believe it, because what they tried to do is they were doing this in Brazil with Bolsonaro, President Bolsonaro as well. They're trying to drive a wedge between the nationalist, populist, lunatic president on the one hand and the enlightened, transnational, international, globalist health experts on the other. It's the media's attempt to try to keep globalism alive. And what we have to understand is what that attempt has in effect done, and Trump has, I think, played this in many ways brilliantly, is this Trump that is – even Chris Wallace of Fox News is playing this. It's so bizarre. They're like, who is Trump? Who is this president to give medical advice via scientifically unverified drugs and blah, 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 blah. And they'll say that at 1 minute, and then they'll run to someone like Bill Gates the next minute to find out what this ultra billionaire thinks we ought to do and his opinion on things and blah, blah, blah. So it's really interesting the breakdown there. If you're a globalist, apparently you can give any medical expertise you want to give. And what Trump has been able to do is brilliant. Trump looks at him and says, hey, I'm not trying to give medical advice. I'm not trying to do it. I'm just saying, bottom line, what do you got to lose? What do you got to lose? You got this drug on the market. It's already there. It's not going to hurt you. And it may help you. It may. I keep saying that. I love his. He always loves to exaggerate. I may. But hey, what do you got to lose? Which resonates more with the American people if you think it through? What have you got to lose versus we need to allow the health experts the unfathomable time needed to test and verify the effectiveness of blah, 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 blah. Right? I mean, the media for some reason thought that the latter, that the highly technical engineering-oriented international globalist chatter was going to be able to trump in a period of crisis, was going to be able to, I should use a better word, I guess, because that's just too apropos, was going to be able to, overwhelm a nationalist populist president coming out and saying, bottom line, we got a drug on the market. What do you got to lose? Give it a shot.
And
people responded. They said, sure, what the hell do I have to lose?
And you know what? That's the same appeal that he used in the minority communities when he was running for president. And that garnered him a larger portion of the minority vote, Black, Hispanic, of the last three Republicans before him since George W. Bush, I guess. And as a result, up until recently, they were doing a lot better, and it has garnered him a lot of minority support that probably will sink the Democrats come November. Do you think Joe Biden is really going to be the candidate, Steve?
I know. Here's the thing. I think when all is said and done, I don't think a politician like Joe Biden, those of us who've known of him for a while, I've been in Delaware for the last 20 years, he's not just going to walk away. I mean, he's got an ego the size of the Empire State Building. He's not just going to walk away from all of his delegates that he has. He has all the leverage in this sense. So they may have to bring him down. Maybe they're going to Me Too him or something like that. But even then, it's going to be a real disaster. We haven't had anyone, to my knowledge, win a presidency without going through the primary process since 1912, since it was first introduced.
I think that was
just kind of throw up a candidate like that and thinking it's all going to work. I think that's it's just testimony to how pathetically banal of a candidate Biden actually is.
Well, I'll make a prediction here, Steve. I think he's going to have a bathtub accident. And whatever it takes. Well, if they can't get Cuomo, then I think, like I've said from the get-go, he was always a placeholder. He just didn't know it. But if they can't get Cuomo, then who are they going to get? Then there's nobody else. And Cuomo doesn't have a chance either, because they're thinking, well, he's a New Yorker. Trump's a New Yorker. He can out New York Trump, and ain't going to happen because he's not flying in Air Force One and none of the trappings of the presidency. But if they can't get Cuomo to do it, and I don't think they're going to, then I think they're toast, and they're just going to cut their losses. What do you think about CNN? I mean, the implosion of that once great network. I remember the first Iraqi war.
Absolutely. I was just thinking about Larry King and all that. And absolutely.
Arnett, I think it was Steve Arnett, I think was his name. And he's there. They're in the Baghdad Hilton as the bombs start falling, and you hear, and they go, oh, like, because a bomb blows up real nearby. And it was like incredible reporting. And now, like Brian Stelter, I mean, he's just an object of ridicule. Fredo Cuomo, he's, forget it. He made the real Fredo look like had a back steel rod in his back. They're just losing it here, and followed up by MSNBC. What's going to happen to these entities and the mainstream news too, because they're losing it as well, and their formula is not working. It's like they don't care about profits anymore. They don't care about audience. All they care about is their agenda, and that is a prescription for failure, and it's working brilliantly. This has to stop at some point, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. thinkprogress.org just closed their doors. They were a big left-wing funded multi-million-dollar website. Like Huffington Post looks like it's going to be closing its doors pretty soon. Nobody wants to buy that one. I think what you're seeing with the websites, the various websites, because when they were starting to pop up in the late 90s and aughts, they were considered like the future of news, and we're finding they're falling apart left and right. If they're on the left, on the right, they're growing by leaps and bounds. I mean, every day you discover a whole new awesome kind of right-wing website and the like. I think you're going to see something similar. CNN can't go on much longer. I don't know how much longer it can continue to hemorrhage viewers. MSNBC's been hemorrhaging viewers. Newspaper circulation is at its lowest since the 1940s today. It's just, I mean, what has happened is the network society, that's what scholars call it, has opened up a national conversation again. And the right came in and said, well, we have to give credit where credit is due. Good old Rush. I mean, Rush came in here in 1988 and said, you know what, there's another way of looking at the news. There's another way of understanding world events. And man, did he, I mean, think about what he did for AM radio and all that. He just awakened this massive conversation. And the left-wing media, up until that time, like you're pointing out, was still at least relatively responsible. There was still some journalistic standards that we all knew they were activists, the Dan Rathers and the Cronkites and all. But nevertheless, I mean, there was still some objective standards. You could sit and watch and be, like you said, astounded by the coverage. You felt like you were there. They were giving you a front row seat, in effect, of these international events. It was amazing. I just think they didn't know what to do. And so as a response, they went hard left. That's certainly what MSNBC tried to do. They tried to be the Fox News of the left. They went hard left, and they just come across as utterly absurd because they're still trying to put forward the veneer that they're an objective news source. But everyone can see. I mean, when you have Don Lemon having his on-air meltdown, when you have Fredo Cuomo freaking out, giving these editorialized leftist rants. I mean, so in the end, it's just a matter of they become increasingly marginalized, irrelevant networks. Yeah,
they're really irrelevant. And it's such a great point because until Rush came along, I will use the analogy of like climate change. It's settled science. So all of these leftist views on everything from the family to whatever the topic you can think of, environmentalism, were deemed settled science. And then here, Rush Limbaugh comes along. He doesn't even have a college degree. I don't think he ever finished college, which, hey, is to his credit. And he just he blows up all of their orthodoxy, all of their beliefs. Literally, it took them a long time. And then the bandwagon, everybody jumped on. And then their remedy isn't, no, we need to revisit our beliefs and maybe change them because maybe we're wrong. It's no, let's take these people out. Let's close these outlets down. Let's take Fox News and infiltrate them with liberals, push out Rupert Murdoch and get his sons in there who will be more receptive. So rather than changing the message, they're out to co-opt the medium. And that is a prescription for failure because I happen to believe, and I think you do also, Steve, is that truth always prevails in the end.
Yep. Especially in the network society where more and more people feel the greatest vanguard we have from them trying to monopolize news again, which they lost, and they're still bitter about it. The greatest vanguard is now the new media. And you know this, Kerry. The new media is all about audience participation. The audience, if you think it through, it's an extension of what, say 1991 was on CNN. It's an extension. All right, we're giving you a front row seat. And not only that, but guess what? We're going to open up the phones. Give us a call. Let's talk about this. Let's put your comments in at the bottom of the video. You get to be a part of understanding what's happening. You're not going to be passively lectured to anymore. You actually are part of it. Leftists hate that. They just want to lecture to you, whereas the right said, we're populists. Come on in. Let's talk, because we know people, by and large, are naturally conservative.
Yeah, and we're a center-right country. And when they're so out of step that you can't even agree on how many sexes there are. I mean,
right.
and Facebook has 57 genders, including peanut butter, which, that's a new one on me. I mean, I admit, I'm getting in my 60s. I'm a little bit, maybe, I don't want to think I'm set in my ways because I'm out there all the time on the web. But compared to these guys, I'm set in my ways. I learned there were two. That's it. Maybe you could change it. Maybe you can't. But there aren't 57. And people just look at that and they roll their eyes, and I'm all for tolerance. Like, I don't care what you do, just don't annoy me. Just leave me out of the equation. Do whatever the heck you want. But when you come after me and you come after middle America and all the institutions of this country that made it great, then we're at war. And that's where we've been. But I think the coronavirus could be the final volley. It could be it could be the left's Battle of Saratoga here.
Ooh, that would be lovely.
Where, hey, it might be their Battle of Saratoga, and they don't know it. And,
that's right.
And all of a sudden they wake up and they're being shipped off, sent back to England.
I think that was November 9th, 2016. They woke up and they just had this. I'll never forget Katie Curry and, just looking at all of the mainstream media looking like they had a collective concussion around 3 a.m. on that morning. And they just realized their whole world was a lie.
Yeah, a lie, and one that they had to keep on defending, even though they knew it. And they looked like shell-shocked veterans. That's what they used to call people with PTSD before they knew that it was PTSD. In World War I, they looked like they had just gone through the Battle of the Bulge for 45 days being shelled and blown apart and seeing their lines, and then all of a sudden they come out of the bunker and they don't recognize anything around them. And then they had to adapt to this new paradigm, which they've done very badly at.
Oh, my.
Can you imagine November 2020, assuming Trump is reelected, and I don't see any way he isn't?
I can't even fathom what they're going to be like on that day. They'll see it coming. I think they'll have to. Yeah, but they'll just be like, what has happened to our country? And we'll just smile and say, we took it back.
Hey, they'll have to seal the windows in CNN Plaza in Atlanta. Better not allow those windows to be opened because people will be jumping out of them. The same at NBC, the same at the Times. I already know that building, their new building there. That's unhealthy building. You can't open any windows, and there's probably a good reason for that. Well, hey, you got to check out Turley Talks. Tell us, you got your private Turley channel now. How is that working out, and what can we expect from it?
Yeah, well, thanks for that. Yeah, we got a brand new membership site. We've got lots of people who just signed up for it. It's really awesome. And what I do is I offer a deep dive every week, about a 45-minute to an hour video on just precisely these kind of issues we're talking about at a really, really deep level, looking at some of the history behind it and the like, put things in perspective. I give you a monthly reading list to stay informed on and the best and most enriching reading that's out there. You're part of a Facebook group, private Facebook group by invitation only of conservatives all over the world. It's just awesome. So you get to interact with people from Hungary and Poland and Germany and Russia and all of that, and Brazil. And you get to share all kinds of things that are going on in your world and their worlds together. And it's a great networking of conservatives from around the world. And there's lots more. There's bonus videos, there's courses I've taught and all that kind of stuff. So you can check it all out just by going to my channel at Dr. Steve Turley on YouTube, and there'll be plenty of links to our membership site.
All right. Excellent. Hey, Turley Talks and the YouTube channel, sign up for that. That is must listening to. I laugh, when I listen to you, Steve, I just laugh the entire way. It's just so optimistic. And hey, the good thing, we're almost through the pandemic. Yes, that's people are dying, but new cases. And it's just what the math people told us was going to happen, but the doctors are always smarter. This is why you don't let the generals run wars. Okay, you don't put the generals in charge of the Defense Department, And you don't put doctors in charge of pandemics, because a doctor will always say, well, if we killed every germ and you lived in a germ-free environment, a sterile home, like, they have in these Silicon Valley factories where it's like they have levels 4 or 5 and up are like not even a microbe. If you had that, well, you'd never get sick, but you'd probably die because you'd never leave the house, and you wouldn't allow anybody to come in. You wouldn't allow any food to come in because that could have microbes. Hey, life is hazardous to your health. Don't put the doctors in charge of this. I think we'll never do that again, because I talk about the truth coming out, Steve. The truth is going to come out about this pandemic, because the Swedish experiment is working its way through, and they didn't do anything except ban congregations of 50 or more. We're going to see their death rate compared to everybody else's probably going to be lower. And once we see that, there'll be no hiding this. And you could say, well, but they have cleaner snow than we have. It's a more green economy. They're much more, and they have open borders, and which they've closed also. They've closed them. All these things, and like you said, the reaction against this godless, atheistic, really soulless ideology of the left, totally relativistic, and gives you really no reason for living, no meaning to your life. You are simply a vassal of the state, and the state tells you to jump, and you don't even ask how high. You just keep jumping until they tell you it's okay. That's coming to an end, and that can't happen soon enough. And that's going to happen in China as well. They're outraged about this. They need to get over their shock. But I think big change is coming for China. You've mentioned it before, that it's their Chernobyl. I think this is bigger than anybody realizes in so many different levels, as well as economically. It'll be years before we recover. Anyway, thanks for coming. Hey, any questions, comments for Dr. Turley or myself? The email address is kl@kerrylutz.com. That's kl@kerrylutz.com. Twitter feed @KerryLutz, Facebook page, Financial Survival Network. Can't thank you enough for coming on again, Steve. It's always a pleasure having you on.
Right back at you, Kerry. Thank you so much.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.